pronouns, and I have the best job in the country. I am the national campus organizer for Planned Parenthood Action Fund. That means I get to work with incredible young leaders, such as some folks in the crowd, working to achieve reproductive freedom in their own communities. And I'm so blessed and thankful that I have that role. I'm actually really thankful to be here today. And particularly, I'm thankful for all of you. I wanna name a white elephant here, y'all. It's a little hot, just a little. And I know that some folks we've been traveling by trains, planes, automobiles to get here today. I think there's a crew who took a 7-hour bus ride, is that right? Oh yeah, 7 hours, y'all. So it's been a long day for New Yorkers. It's been a long day. So I wanna thank you all, and I want you actually all to turn to your neighbor and to thank them for being here today. Show yourself some love. You deserve it. And we know the energy, it doesn't stop there, right? We know that people have been taking action in the streets at home. People have been in heart all day. People are really ensuring that we're stopping Kavanaugh, right? Who are we gonna stop? Awesome. Yeah, so we have an incredible lineup of speakers today, and before I introduce them, I want to first talk a little bit about why I'm here. I want to talk about the people that bring me here to this work today. And if I'm talking about you in this crowd, or if I'm talking about your people, I want you to join along with me and call in those people by snapping your hands like this, okay? Awesome. So I'm here today for young people who are fighting for good sex ed and safety in their schools. I'm here today for all of the people who have needed abortion as basic health care and for those who will need it in the future. I am here today for all of our immigrant communities who have felt unsafe and unwelcome in this country. And I'm here for all the queer folks who are still to this day fighting for equal rights. I'm here for our communities of color who are fighting just to feel safe in their own neighborhoods. And I'm here for all people who are just looking to access affordable, compassionate, accessible healthcare. Who's here with me? Awesome. So now I am very, very proud and honored to introduce our first speaker, my boss, the Executive Vice President of Planned Parenthood Action Fund, Dawn Legans.
It's great to see all of you here tonight. Thank you for being here. I'm even more glad that the folks in there can see the folks out here. So let's turn, say, hey, we're out here. And we don't want Brett Kavanaugh. You know, we have some amazing senators in there who have been standing up and doing a great job in the hearing room. Senators Feinstein, Durbin, Blumenthal, Hirono, Booker, and Harris. Boy, did she get it. They've been asking the tough questions and doing everything they can to get straight answers from Brett Kavanaugh. Can we show these champions some appreciation? You know, what's happened in that room the last 3 days is actually historic. Dozens of people have been arrested for bringing the voice of real people into the room, interrupting the non-answering Brett Kavanaugh and the majority senator's reflections on how great he is at carpooling. Quite unenlightening. You know, Chuck Grassley, you just heard him talking about Chuck Grassley, said he's never seen anything like it in the whole time that he's been on the committee. Now, what I see is there's never been a Supreme Court confirmation hearing with so many real people demanding to be heard. When you are about to vote to give a lifetime appointment to the highest court in the land to a man who does not believe that we should be able to make our own personal medical decisions without government interference, how exactly do they think we're going to react? Right? Brett Kavanaugh just spent 3 days ducking and dodging and diving to avoid answering any questions honestly about his views on Roe v. Wade. But I don't need a hearing to tell me that Brett Kavanaugh has something very bad in store for safe legal abortion. His record already told us, like when he ruled that a young undocumented woman could not have the abortion that she legally deserved, and they were willing to hold her hostage in order to deny her that abortion. Ooh. You know, we saw an email that came out today that told us Brett Kavanaugh agrees, despite what he said in the hearing room, that the Supreme Court can overturn Roe and that he'll be able to do it himself in the Senate if they don't stop him.
That's not going to happen.
Donald Trump himself told us when he said, Donald Trump himself, we're talking about Donald Trump. And what did Donald Trump do? Donald Trump told us that he would only appoint judges who would overturn Roe. And you know what? I don't believe him often, but I believe him on this one. This is not some far-off theoretical threat. There are 14 abortion rights cases that are one step away from the Supreme Court. We cannot allow Brett Kavanaugh to be the deciding vote on any of them. Now, I don't care how great a coach he is. I don't care how many women he's hired to be law clerks. I don't care how much he admires his mom. I care about what he's going to do to our rights and the rights of our children. Today, my triplet daughters are 19 years old. When I was 19, I got an abortion when I lived down in Louisiana. I didn't have to worry about waiting periods or forced ultrasounds or state-mandated counseling meant to shame me for making my own medical decision the way people in Louisiana have to do today. Just a few years ago, there were 11 health centers in Louisiana. Today, there are 3. In many states, my daughters, our children, would face more obstacles to accessing abortion than I did over 30 years ago. We cannot afford to lose any more of our rights and our liberties. And what I want
all, and especially to our Senator Susan Collins. She may be the only hope in preventing Judge Kavanaugh from being confirmed to the Supreme Court. 56 years ago, I got pregnant. I had an abortion. It seems like a lifetime ago, and it was. It was before Roe v. Wade. It was before the pill was invented. It was before birth control was legal. It was the dark age for women's right to choose. There was no choice, and we may be heading there again. No is right. No. No. In 1963, my world turned upside down. Hello.
Give me 1 second. Sorry.
You're My world was upside down. I was pregnant. My mother got really scared. First she threw me out, then she got busy. she took me back. It turns out that there was a network of women. I was 17 years old. But they knew what to do. She told a neighbor that she was pregnant. And she just didn't want to start over with a baby. This woman knew someone who knew someone. And that's how it worked back then. It turns out there was a man who was performing illegal abortions because his daughter had died from one, and he was determined to help others. He was 3 hours away. My dad drove me there, and we never spoke of it again. I had my abortion. I was lucky because I lived. Today, I have a daughter and 2 wonderful granddaughters. And now I'm representing a generation of women, many who did not live. I am speaking for them. I am their voice. We are not going back, ever, to those times. Hell no, right. And Judge Kavanaugh would take us there. Never again. It will be over my dead body because we are standing on their dead bodies, and we will never let this happen again. Never again. Hell no, hell no. I now have another incredible woman from Maine to speak to you.
Hey y'all. I'm Donna McNeil. I live in the great state of Maine. Susan, I hope you're listening. Legions of women are behind me whose stories cannot be told today. I was 17. 1965, on summer vacation with my parents, Ocean City, Maryland. Met a boy, had sex. 4 weeks later, no period. I decided to tell my mother, who is a devout Catholic and a registered nurse. When I told her I thought I was pregnant, she pulled me down to my knees and began to pray. I said, Mom, you can pray, but I don't think it's going to make me unpregnant. She turned into nurse mom and took me to the doctor who verified I was pregnant, and then she took me to church to confess my sin. On the way home, she said, you're telling your father. My father was well on his way to becoming a 2-star general in the United States Air Force. He had done everything to raise me well, and I knew I was going to disappoint him greatly. He came home that night. I sat down next to him on the couch. Dad, I'm pregnant. How can I help you? That's all he said. And those have to be the kindest words that anyone can say to you when you're pregnant. This straight arrow, Republican, military, Catholic guy went against every value he held to make a bright future for his daughter. The next week, we're driving to Baltimore, Maryland to meet the providers in a parking lot of the Howard Johnsons. My dad paid them half the money, and I got into a car with 2 strange men, and I was blindfolded. We drove about an hour into the countryside to an abandoned farmhouse. I got out of the car, the blindfold was removed. I went into a farmhouse empty of furniture except for a gurney under a bright light in the dining room. The procedure seemed to be professional. It was quick and relatively painless, and then it was over. We went back to the Howard Johnsons, paid the rest of the money, and the next week I was at freshman orientation at Syracuse University. I am so grateful to those strangers who helped me that day, and to women and men who fight tirelessly every day for safe and legal and stigma-free abortions. My privilege bought me a relatively good experience amid a horror show of possible experiences, and we can't go back. Brett Kavanaugh would take us back there to where people have to meet in parking lots and be blindfolded and driven into the countryside and be administered by strangers to get decent health care. Vote no on Kavanaugh.
Hi, my name is Benta Lund. I'm a little nervous, but I'm also excited. Grateful to be here. I had an abortion 40 years ago in 1978. It was 5 years after Roe v. Wade. I was 19 years old. My boyfriend and I scraped together the money to pay an OBGYN in private practice. 2 weeks later, I started college. And I never spoke of it again. Not to my twin sister, not to my friends, not to my colleagues. For almost 40 years, I kept my abortion a secret. The only person I told was my husband. In the years since I graduated, I went to med school, I became a pediatrician. I have saved, thank you, I have saved babies and children's lives. I got married and raised 2 amazing children of my own. And mostly I haven't talked about my abortion because it's a personal and confidential medical procedure, and quite frankly, it's no one else's business. And yet, I know I have my current life because I was able to choose and have an abortion at age 19. So, I can't keep quiet any longer. Enough is enough. I can't stand by and watch the rights of women in this country be taken away by a government or men who want to control a woman's body and her ability to plan for her future. I refuse to be shamed into silence, as our very rights to lead full, productive lives are on the line. And I am terrified that my daughter or son won't have the same options should they face an unwanted pregnancy. And if Brett Kavanaugh is confirmed to the Supreme Court, that fear is destined to become a reality. We cannot let that happen. I'm here today to keep Brett Kavanaugh from being confirmed to the Supreme Court. If at age 59 I found my voice, so can you. Please join us, and we'll be so loud they can't ignore us.
All right, let's give it up one more time. Awesome. All right. So before we get wild for our next speaker, I do need to make an announcement. If you left a black backpack with papers in it over yonder near the wall towards the left, I need you to go get it now, or else it will be considered a suspicious package by the Capitol Police and you will not be able to have it anymore. So if that is your black backpack, please go retrieve it. Now I am extremely excited to announce our next speaker. This is Carrie Chu, who is a patient storyteller from our partners at Planned Parenthood Advocates of Virginia. So please give it up.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for coming out and letting me tell my story. Mine's a little different than what you've just heard, but I think it's still worth telling. I've been pregnant 3 times in the past 24 months. I've lost all 3 wanted pregnancies. The first was a silent miscarriage at 8 weeks. The second was at 21 weeks, a boy. My placenta failed and there was almost no amniotic fluid. My doctor said he was days away from dying. It was incredibly difficult, but I decided to terminate. The third loss happened at 10 weeks. Suddenly there was no longer a heartbeat. It would have been a girl. I want to be clear, my body did not naturally expel my failed pregnancies. I needed surgery. I needed surgery to prevent infection, to recover physically, and to move on with my life. Thank you. But even as a mother who wanted her babies, no special doors opened for me. I faced the same undue barriers to care that women of all kinds of circumstances face. In DC, I faced delay due to the shortage of providers who provide abortion or abortion-type care. The worst was the 7 days I had to wait, over Christmas no less, to end the misery for me and my dying son, who was 21 weeks along at that point. In Virginia, I faced delay because of restrictive abortion laws. My doctor had referred me to someone in Falls Church he thought would give me the best care. And I found out that Virginia's 24-hour quote-unquote abortion waiting period also applies to a mother whose baby has already died. That's right, the Virginia legislature thinks it's okay to force a woman to wait to treat her miscarriage, and for no valid medical reason. Unfortunately, asking some people to simply respect a woman's private medical decisions often falls on deaf ears. So let me put it another way. Restricting healthcare options for women hurts families. No one can know all the reasons why someone seeks medical care, whether it's for pregnancy or not. No one can know, and no one needs to know, period. When you interfere with someone's health care, you interfere with their life and their family. But if Brett Kavanaugh is confirmed to the U.S. Supreme Court, our right to privacy, our right to health care, our right to safe, legal abortion, it's all on the line. I ask you to speak up about your miscarriage, stillbirth, abortion, or even the rough parts of your very much wanted pregnancy. If you don't tell your story, others are ready to tell it for you. And I, for one, refuse to hand them a blank piece of paper and a pen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Carrie, for that incredibly moving story. Now I have the pleasure of introducing Representative Mark Takano, who is coming from us to representing Riverside, California. So please give it up.
Thank you. Thank you. I won't be long because I think it's far more powerful for you to hear the stories and experience of the women who know the history, who have their own personal stories to tell you, and it's very moving. So I won't stand very long here, but I wanted to be here to stand with you, to stand with Planned Parenthood, to stand with women, to stand with everybody who cares about everybody's individual right to control their own body. It was wonderful to hear my own Senator Kamala Harris question. Come on, yeah, thank you. Established that, with Judge Kavanaugh, that, there's no laws which, control a man's body. And, the idea that we would still, in this year, 2018, seek to have anybody else than an individual woman control her body is insane. And it's wrong, and we will fight tooth and nail. Let me just leave you with this thought. And Leader Pelosi, isn't she great, Leader Pelosi? Leader Pelosi always says, and I take it to heart, public sentiment is everything. And it comes from Lincoln. And Lincoln said, with public sentiment, anything is possible. Without it, nothing is possible. And if we generate enough public sentiment, it will not be possible to put Judge Kavanaugh on that court. With enough public sentiment, okay, and look, I'm going to be a little more bold and just say, look, no matter what they do, this is not a fight of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It's a fight of a lifetime. We know that, right? We know that progress is not inevitable. We know that progress can be reversed. We thought that 8 years under President Obama that progress was inevitable, that it was on autopilot, but it's not. And we may be in this for a long time. And just know that there are recourses, and we need to take our case to the American people. We need to get everyone to rise up. He gets on this court. The Congress can add more people to that court, and that's what we'll do. We'll do what we need to do to make sure that the rights of women are protected. And they talk about President Roosevelt being rebuked for quote unquote packing that court. Well, you know what? Have you ever heard of a switch in time saved 9? The threat that he was going to generate public sentiment to do that, the judges changed their mind. One of them switched their votes, and they saved 9 justices. So I'm not saying we have to go there, but we can go there and know that we can go there. But my druthers, I would rather make sure that we generate enough heat in the next few days so that those senators don't dare do anything to the precious rights of our women in our country. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your leadership and your words. I'm now pleased to welcome to the stage the President and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, Vanita Gupta.
Good evening, everyone. Look at this crowd. It's awesome. I am Vanita Gupta, President and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, a coalition of more than 200 national civil rights organizations working towards an America as good as its ideals. Look, we said it before, we're going to say it again, that this is a fight for the soul of our nation. And today, we learned why Chairman Chuck Grassley has refused to ask for the vast majority of Kavanaugh's record as a political operative and kept them under lock and key. Kavanaugh explicitly questioned whether Roe versus Wade is settled law, saying that the court can't always overrule its precedent. And the documents show that he has been openly critical of affirmative action. Now, does this sound like a nominee who's going to uphold women's rights? No. Does it sound like a nominee who's going to honor our long and painful history to have racial justice in this country? No. Does it sound like a nominee who's going to protect the rights of all over the interests of the wealthy and the powerful? No. Our civil and human rights are literally on the line, hanging in the balance right now. It means affordable health care, voting rights, equal pay for equal work, rights for people with disabilities, women's freedom to control our own bodies, and equal opportunity for all. Kavanaugh and the environment, the list is long. Kavanaugh yesterday, if you saw this during Senator Harris's amazing and rigorous questioning, he refused to condemn the president's statement that both sides were to blame for the violence in Charlottesville, Virginia. He refused to answer questions about whether the president can pardon himself. He's refused to say that he would recuse himself if an issue about Trump's civil or criminal liability would come before the Supreme Court, which we all know it will. This is outrageous. And we've got to see the writing on the wall because our democracy is at stake. Our bodies are at stake, and our civil and human rights are at stake. And that's why senators like Kamala Harris and Mazie Hirono, Dick Durbin, Pat Leahy, Richard Blumenthal, and Cory Booker are courageously speaking truth to power right now, right across the street. It's why women inside the hearing room, we are fighting for our lives and for our rights. And that's why we're making noise in that room. It's why people who never considered themselves activists right now are rallying and mobilizing and calling their senators. We know that we've got to save the Supreme Court because ultimately this is a fight to save the soul of our country. That's what democracy looks like. And so tonight I ask each and every one of you to join us all in carrying out the message with your families, with your friends, with your communities, to speak out. We need the lights on, lit all over the Capitol switchboard. Call your senators, tell them what's at stake for you, tell them to oppose Kavanaugh, ask your friends and family around the country to do the same, because together we fight. We are going to say no to Kavanaugh. Let's chant it now. Kavanaugh, 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 Kavanaugh. Thank you all. We need your energy, we need your fight, and we are in this together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vanita. And now I am so happy to introduce Seth Schober, who is an Alaskan healthcare advocate. Please welcome Seth.
I'm telling my story for Lisa Murkowski, my senator, and I hope she's listening. It was a bright summer day 4 years ago. It was much like today. I was with a close friend on a pleasant run through the woods, and I had a smile on my face. You know that great feeling you get when you get your body moving after a long day of work? I was feeling good. 10 minutes later, I woke up to the sight of an ambulance coming down the trail and my friend pouring tears beside me. My name is Seth Schober. I was born and raised in small town Palmer, Alaska. I love the outdoors and have always lived an active, healthy lifestyle. So why was I laying on the ground surrounded by paramedics, clueless? Well, that incident 4 years ago, sorry. That incident 4 years ago was the first of my several seizures to date, now having been diagnosed with epilepsy. But why did it happen? No one knows. It doesn't run in the family, and it wasn't because of anything that I did. No one expects these situations, but they could be thrust upon anyone at any moment. The impact on me could be far more than the hospital bill and the changes in lifestyle. I woke up that day with the possibility of paying more for health insurance every single day for the rest of my life. The Affordable Care Act works to prohibit that injustice. For now, when looking for insurance, I must be treated fairly. However, if Brett Kavanaugh is appointed to the Supreme Court, this legal right could be stripped from my hands. His voting record shows that he is in favor of discrimination against those with pre-existing medical conditions. His judicial attacks on healthcare are an attack on me, and they're an attack on Americans who need healthcare the most. Today, I speak to Senator Murkowski on behalf of many fellow Alaskans with pre-existing conditions. Senator Murkowski, for the good of all Alaskans, I need you to vote against Kavanaugh in his confirmation hearing. I am here for hundreds of thousands of Alaskans. I am here for hundreds of thousands of Alaskans who could be directly harmed by your vote. You're in D.C. to represent us Alaskans, not the corporations that throw around the most money. You've already seen how much health care means to Alaskans, so fight for it. I still consider myself a healthy man. I'm just a healthy man who's had a few seizures. But that's not how Kavanaugh sees me. He believes I deserve to be taken advantage of by insurance companies and charged exorbitant amounts more, all because of my bad luck. Kavanaugh believes in a system that threatens half of all Alaskans. Senator Murkowski, to provide that context, that's over twice the number of people who voted for you last time you were elected. You can't ignore us, and you can't ignore Alaska. Know that a vote for Kavanaugh is a vote against the health of Alaskans. So stand beside us, not against us. Vote against discriminatory health care. For me, for Alaskans, and for millions of Americans across the country, vote against Kavanaugh.
Thank you so much, Seth, for your bravery. I'm now really pleased to introduce Fatima Goss-Graves, the President and CEO of National Women's Law Center.
So thank you. I'm Fatima Goss-Graves. I'm President and CEO of the National Women's Law Center. So there's a long tradition that when nominees for the Supreme Court come before the Senate for their confirmation hearings, that they don't answer questions, and generally everyone pretends that if you just sit there and you are calm and you look judicial and you pretend enough that you are already on the Supreme Court, then you are likely to make it to the Supreme Court. Well, I do not think we can pretend any longer. See, we can't pretend that this has been a fair process. when they've hidden hundreds of thousands of documents from the public and hundreds of thousands of documents from the Senate. What are they hiding? And we cannot pretend that it is no big deal that today Brett Kavanaugh said birth control was an abortion-inducing drug. So to be clear, that sort of conflating of contraception and abortion is nothing more than a dog whistle to the right. And we also can't pretend that when Brett Kavanaugh says the phrase settled law, that he will not turn around and block access to safe and legal abortion. He will do it the first chance that he gets. And we know this because when he had a chance to rule on abortion, that's exactly what he did. He wrote passionately about how the government could block access to a young woman's goal and desire of having a safe and legal abortion. And we now have one of those secret emails that were dumped today that show that when Brett Kavanaugh wasn't sitting before the Senate, when he was just writing what he really thinks, that what he said is actually the Supreme Court can overturn whatever it wants and that Roe is not settled. So are you done pretending? Yes. Are you done pretending? Yes. We are done pretending. There is far too much at stake. There is far too much at stake when people could be criminalized for getting the care that they need. When abortions happen, but before we knew that they happened, but they were not safe and they were not legal. When women of color and low-income women will be especially penalized under a world without Roe. There is far too much at stake to allow our children and our grandchildren to somehow have fewer rights than the rights that we enjoy today. So it's time to rise up. It's time to join together. It is time to fight back, because here is what I know. He is not yet Justice Kavanaugh. That's right. Let's be sure it stays that way.
Thank you so much. All right, now I'm welcoming next up to the stage, we have Sonya Yong, who is the Executive Director of the National Asian Pacific American Women's Forum. Please give it up.
How y'all doing? You ready to stop this train wreck? Let them hear you in there. All right. So my name is Sonya Yong, and I am the Executive Director of National Asian Pacific American Women's Forum, our country's only national organization dedicated to building power for Asian American and Pacific Islander women and girls to enact policies that change to improve our lives. And that's why I'm here today, because the health and lives of millions of Asian American women and girls across the country, like myself, are at stake. Women of color are fighting like hell to stop Kavanaugh's nomination, because this is about the future of Roe and so much more. It's about reproductive health access, affordability, not just our right to them. It's about affordable health care. It's about voting rights. It's about worker rights. It's about our religious freedom to various faiths. It's about keeping our immigrant families together. I came to this country as a very hopeful 18-year-old to pursue a dream of determining my own life and building a life for myself, being able to make choices I want to make. And some of those choices have been that I have been able to become a mother at 35 because of the choices that I have been afforded and could choose to make. And that decision to become a mother at 35 has allowed me to make certain lifestyle and parenting choices. But let's be real. Many women in our country, especially women of color, still don't get to make these fundamental choices about our own reproductive decisions. Many lack the ability to access quality health care or even are paid decent wages and have safe working places. In some communities we know, still to this day, like Flint, Michigan, they still don't have right to clean water. With the nomination of Kavanaugh, not only are we not making a progress towards expanding rights for women of color, we're quite literally going backwards. His record, or the lack of transparency of his record on environment, on native sovereignty, on workers' rights to fair wages and safety, women's right to abortion and other reproductive choices make him a dangerous addition to the bench. Trump's racist and misogynist effort to protect some people's rights at the expense of all of us is a problem. Kavanaugh is a part of the plan to strip certain Americans of our rights while protecting the few. My community matters. All my Muslim brothers and sisters matter. Women's ability to make their own reproductive choice, and more importantly, to have access to health services matter. Keeping our families together, regardless of how you entered this country, matters. The LGBTQ community matters. When over 90% of this lifetime appointee or potential appointees' record is being hidden from us and from the electeds, we should be concerned. And among the new Kavanaugh documents that the senators got today, there is an email chain talking about a weekend trip. One person in this email chain, it's not clear if it's Kavanaugh, one of his buddies, joked that although you may be hoping that I've lined up a hostess for a rub and tug massage session, Su Chang actually is the name of the sailboat. Yes, I don't have to explain to you why that is offensive. Whether this was Kavanaugh or the kinds of friends he keeps, this is not the type of person we need in our highest court. So senators, hear us loud and clear. Drop Brett Kavanaugh. The future of our democracy is at stake.
Thank you so much. So now I have a little bit, before I introduce our next speakers, I have a little bit of a selfish request. So I'm from New York. Where are my New Yorkers? Hell yeah. And that means my parents don't get to see me do work pretty much ever because I always have to come here to do the work. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say hi to my mom and dad on video so I can prove to them that I do really cool work. And we're gonna give them our energy because they're tired too, y'all. They don't wanna call any more senators, but they need the energy to do it, all right? Okay, so when I say go, y'all are gonna go, hi, Mom and Dad. Okay, ready, set, go. Thank you. Awesome. Okay, so now that you just did me a huge favor, I'm going to do you all a huge favor and introduce our next speakers. We've got from March for Our Lives, Michael Solomon and Eve Levinson. So please give it up.
Love you too. What's up, everybody? My name is Michael Solomon. I'm a junior at Springbrook High School in Silver Spring, Maryland, the co-president of Montgomery County Students for Change, and an activist within the National March for Our Lives movement. I'm standing with all of you here today because our country is facing a moral crisis. The GOP-controlled Senate is trying to push the nomination of an unjust man into that Supreme Court, but we won't allow it. Hell no, we won't go. At a time where Senate leadership has completely abandoned the attributes of common sense and dignity, we need to embrace and stand with Senators Booker, Harris, Hirono, and all our other allies in the Judiciary Committee for their courage in confronting corruption over the course of these hearings. Over the past year or so, I saw myself take part in a wave of youth engagement and activism that this country has never seen before. From the March for Our Lives and the Road to Change, to the Poor People's Campaign and the fight for immigrants' rights, people across this country, both young and old, are taking back their rightful place as the makers of change in this country. And now today, we're here to continue that streak and to make sure that a man who will surely bring a lifetime of injustice and immorality to our nation's leadership does not become a Supreme Court justice. If confirmed, Brett Kavanaugh would be the second Supreme Court justice appointed by what many would call the most corrupt and lawless administration this nation has ever seen. The last thing we need is another Trump appointee that'll serve as a puppet to the president. He does not represent the values of this country. All throughout his career, he has consistently shown himself to be a threat against reproductive rights, racial equality, common sense gun legislation, and just about every policy that contributes to the betterment of marginalized groups in this country. And Kavanaugh seems to enjoy quoting the Bible when it comes to government matters. Ironically, there are a few verses in the good book that accurately describe everything a Supreme Court justice should be and everything he is not. A favorite of mine, Isaiah 1:17, tells us, "Learn to do good, seek justice, reprove the ruthless, defend the orphan, and plead for the widow." Kavanaugh sides with the ruthless, abandons the orphan, disregards the widow. He refused to shake the hand of a father who lost his child to gun violence, and he cares nothing for the environment, and he wants to keep guns in the hands of those who are not fit to own them. He has never taken a stand for the marginalized, and he definitely won't do so if confirmed to the Supreme Court. Therefore, it is our moral responsibility to do everything within our power to stop him from getting there. So we will keep on rallying. We will call our senators. We will not stop until we see this through.
Hi, thank you everybody for being here. My name is Eve Levinson. I'm an activist and I'm a freshman at George Washington University. I first want to say thank you so much to Planned Parenthood and all the other organizations who have spent time organizing today's protests and all of the other actions over the few days. And thank you for including us, the youth of America, in this movement. We, the youth of America, have spoken loud and clear over the past few months, and we have made it clear that enough is enough. We have walked out, marched, spoke out, held sit-ins and die-ins. And today, we are asking, begging our senators to vote no. We ask that you stand with the youth and that you stand with your constituents as we say no to Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh's rhetoric around gun control falls prey to the same misconceptions that many others who oppose our movement do. They claim that common sense gun control violates the Second Amendment, but this is simply a lie. We are not against guns. We are not against the Second Amendment. What we are against is deadly weapons being less regulated than a woman's body. What we are against are people being able to get a machine made to kill without a background check. What we are against is a man who would look Fred Gutenberg, a man who just lost his daughters a few months, right in the eye, look him up and down, and walk away and dismiss him. So senators, when you are deciding how to vote, I want to remind you to think of what's at stake. What's at stake is our lives, our safety, and our future. Thank you.
Gotta give it up for the youth, y'all. All right, I'm inviting up next to the stage the co-founder and co-director of the Restaurant Opportunity Centers United, Saru Jayaraman.
Hello. I'm here on behalf of 13 million workers in the restaurant industry who still earn a wage of $2.13 an hour in 2018. And as a result of having to live off of tips, cannot afford things like reproductive access, cannot afford to live, let alone to reproduce. And you know that we just had a big victory here in DC, raising the minimum wage from $3 to $15. And yesterday we had a big victory in Michigan, where the Republicans were forced, because of our activism, to raise the wage from $3 to $12 for tipped workers in the state of Michigan. But here's the thing. We're talking about a Supreme Court nominee who would not only take away a woman's right to choose, but also as a worker, her ability to afford anything at all, even if she had the right to choose. All of her rights with regard to actually being afford to feed her family, her right to organize, her right to sue her employer on the basis of discrimination or wage theft, her right not to have to go through a mandatory arbitration process. All of that is at stake. And here's the worst part of it all. We have a president who's been cheating and lying and stealing and getting to choose his own judge and jury. We know as restaurant workers, and any of you, which is a lot of us who've worked in the industry, know if you were to lie and steal in a restaurant, it would be automatic termination and you would not get to choose your own judge or jury. But I know we can win because we've been winning against the most powerful, horrible odds. In the fall, you might know that President Trump tried to make tips the property of owners rather than workers. And we mobilized with many of you, 400,000 people, and we never thought we could win with this insanity, but we won. And I say that to say that we can win now, whether it's stopping him now or stopping him later. When people organize, we can go up against the most powerful forces, even if they come after their kids, which they've done to me. We can do it. Thank you.
How fired up, y'all? Awesome. All right, next up, I have another incredible storyteller hailing from Planned Parenthood, Metro Washington, Jasmine Clemons. Please give it up.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for standing in this heat. All right, my name is Jasmine Clemons, and I am one of the millions of American women who's had an abortion. Give it up for abortion. Abortion has long been a safe healthcare option in our country, but I had to overcome a ton of obstacles to exercise my constitutional right. I'd been on birth control for years, but we all know things happen, and I was one of those people that got pregnant. I was in my early 20s, working retail, living in Florida, thousands of miles from my family, and my partner and I were in no way ready to raise a child together. I didn't even know what my major was going to be the next semester. So there was no question what I was going to do. So I made my first call to my gynecologist, because who else do you call? And when I asked the nurse for recommendations and just where do I go to get an abortion, all she said was, Dr. So-and-so will not help you with any such thing. So strike one. So then I located the only abortion provider in town, only to find out the cost was way out of my budget and basically as much as my rent. That's strike two. So at this point, I knew I still needed this abortion, but I was running out of options. Then out of nowhere, I saw a sign on campus that read, pregnant, need help? Bingo, right? Right. Well, I stopped by the address on the sign, and a woman sat me down in a room, and she began asking me all kinds of personal questions. Where are your parents? What's your religion? What would God think about your decision? Right, boo. I was completely taken aback and offended, and I realized this woman didn't want to help me at all. And I had unknowingly walked into a crisis pregnancy center. So at this point, I was close to giving up, but then somehow it dawned on me to call my health insurance. To this day, I have no idea where I got the inclination, but I learned very quickly that I was lucky to be on an employer plan that would cover a portion of my abortion costs. Amen. So that's the key words. I was lucky enough. This whole ordeal had taken over a month. I had to take a day off of work. I had to drive hours away, but I was able to get to a facility where I was treated with compassion and care. So many other Americans aren't as lucky. Maybe they don't have health insurance, an understanding employer to let them off of work, or even a mode of transportation. If I lacked any one of those things, I wouldn't have been able to make the single best decision for my body, my future, and my life. And had I known about Planned Parenthood, I would have gotten the unbiased information that I deserved and needed from the very first phone call. So no one should have to go through the hoops that I did just to get the health care that I needed and deserved. And if Brett Kavanaugh is confirmed to the Supreme Court, more Americans will face greater barriers, especially black women like myself. So we can't let that happen. That's why all of us are here today. That's why I'm here today with other storytellers talking about what we've been through. Because Brett can say whatever he wants in these hearings, but we know that when it comes down to it, his actions speak louder than words. Time and time again, he's acted against women. He's acted against our body autonomy. And we know that he won't care about us and will do everything that he can to overturn our rights if he is made a justice. So we're not going to be fooled. Let's stand up, let's speak out, and let's make sure we stop Kavanaugh.
All right. So the sun is going down. I feel a breeze in the air. Are you all ready to chant? Awesome. Who knows the democracy chant? Oh, yeah? Okay. Well, let me start. Please give me my job. Okay, so I'm going to say, show me what democracy looks like. And then you all say, this is what democracy looks like. You all are pros. I didn't need to explain that. Okay. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. All right, now take all of this energy, ball it up in your hands. All this loving, wonderful energy for the reproductive rights movement for all of our people, and we're throwing it right at the heart building, all right? 1, 2, 3. All right, y'all. I'm done fooling around. Okay, now I am here to introduce our next speaker. We've got the chair for Hoyas for Choice from DC, Angela Masky. Give it up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Angela, and I'm 21 years old and a senior at Georgetown University. I'm also a native of Kentucky. For the past month, I've been showing up to Senators Collins and Murkowski's offices every day the Senate is in session to ask them to meet with me about Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court. I've been doing this because my senators, Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul, boo, yeah, that's right, have shown time and again that they won't stand up for my reproductive rights. In fact, Mitch McConnell wants to do the exact opposite of that. Senators Collins and Murkowski, this nomination won't just affect your constituents. It will affect people like me, particularly young people, who live in states where abortion access is already extremely limited. Kentucky has only one abortion clinic remaining, as well as a number of abortion restrictions, including a 20-week ban. If Kavanaugh is confirmed, abortion access for Kentuckians like me could be restricted even further. Every senator, including Senators Collins and Murkowski, need to recognize that this nomination is not about Kavanaugh's personal life or what kind of soccer dad he is. It's about how his rulings will affect people, especially young people, like me, all over the country for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. All right. Now, next speaker, please give a warm welcome to Jessica Gonzalez Rojas, the Executive Director at the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Health.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask how you're feeling, and you're going to say Poderosa. How are you feeling? How you feeling? How are you feeling? That means that we're feeling really powerful. My name is Jessica Gonzalez Rojas. I'm the Executive Director of the National Latina Institute for Reproductive Health. And I'm here to say that we need to stop Kavanaugh right now. For Latinas, for women of color, for immigrants, for disabled folks, for LGBTQ individuals who already face significant barriers to their legal right to abortion, access to contraception, and access to affordable health care services, Kavanaugh's nomination is a pressing threat to our health and safety. Kavanaugh's dissenting opinion in the case of Jane Doe makes it clear that he is willing to strip immigrant women from their right to make decisions about their own health, their own family, and their future. Like Jane Doe, the current president, thousands of children and pregnant people are detained under dangerous and unlawful conditions. Confirming Judge Kavanaugh will further this administration's complete disregard for the health, safety, and the humanity of immigrants. Crossing a border or being in a detention center does not strip a person of their basic human rights. All Janes, yes, all Janes and all immigrants carry with them the fundamental human right, including the right to decide if, when, and how to become a parent. We demand that the Senate Judiciary Committee fully vet his complete record, and we know that record is very racist, and ultimately reject Kavanaugh's nomination. Our right to health, dignity, and justice, salud, dignidad, y justicia, and to the well-being of our families and our communities for generations hang in the balance. What do we need to do? Stop Kavanaugh! When do we need to do that? Now! Thank you, Poderosas.
All right, please help me give a warm welcome to the stage. We have Rebecca Coakley, who's the director of the Disability Justice Initiative at the Center for American Progress. Please give it up.
Thank you so much. It is so amazing to be here tonight, to be here with all of you, all of our friends, all of our family. You want to say anything, Kaya?
The floor is lava.
The floor is lava. If you have a 4-year-old, you understand what that means. So my name is Rebecca Coakley, and I am the director of the Disability Justice Initiative at the Center for American Progress. I'm going to take you guys back to 1989. A woman walks in for a meeting that's going to decide her future. She's a single mom whose husband left her the minute she got accepted into college, and so she went back to school full-time to make a better life for her and her daughter. Across from her sits the tenure committee at the college that she works at. She's up for consideration for tenure, lifetime job security, health insurance for her parents, her children, and the work is personal for her because she's also a person with a disability. And this is the very center that she would end up being employed at that she entered years ago when she was going back to school. The chairman of the committee, older white man, looked at her over the top of his glasses and said, "We have decided to deny you tenure because, well, you can't reach more than the bottom 6 inches of a chalkboard. And how can you ever be a teacher if you can't reach more than the bottom 6 inches of a chalkboard? Thank you and goodbye." That woman was my mother, Joan Hare. And that matters because repeatedly, as we saw time and time again, Judge Kavanaugh has sided with people like that tenure committee. Judge Kavanaugh stood with the employers. He stood with the discriminators. He stood against people fighting for oppression. And I'm here today because Judge Kavanaugh thinks that people with disabilities should not have the right to make medical decisions about their own bodies. When my daughter, who's sitting here, who chose to come up here with me today, was born 4 years ago, I laid on an operating room table at Sibley Memorial, which is just about half an hour west of here. And as, you know, they pulled Kaya out of my stomach in a C-section. And as my doctor's getting ready to literally wrap it up, the anesthesiologist over my left shoulder says, "So while you're down there, Doc, are you going to tie her tubes?" Not, "Miss Coakley, would you like to have your tubes tied?" Not, "Miss Coakley, are you planning on having any other children? Your child is beautiful, by the way." None of that. "Are you planning on tying her tubes?" Like I was not even there. Thank God I had a doctor who literally, if she could have pulled out a gun and shot him, she probably would, but instead she shot him daggers with her eyes and said, "Absolutely not. My patient works at the White House and she can speak for herself." But this is not a new story. I know many women with disabilities and who frequently run into non-disabled men that think they can tell us what to do with our bodies, whether it be our fathers, our teachers, or our doctors. In DC, in the case Doe X El Tarlo versus the city, versus the District of Columbia, it was decided that medical procedures could not be performed on disabled people without their consent. Judge Kavanaugh thought he knew better. So on appeal, he ruled and spoke over the desires of women with disabilities. Mind you, 2 of these women were forced to have abortions against their will, and 1 was forced to have an eye surgery against her will. Judge Kavanaugh said, accepting the wishes of patients who lack and have always lacked the mental capacity to make medical decisions makes no logical sense. Disabled people have always had to fight for rights to our bodies. How many of you have migraines? Raise your hand if you have migraines. Keep your hand up if you were believed the first time you were told someone you had a migraine. And like 95% of your hands are down. You are included when we talk about women with disabilities. How many of you have been to a therapist in the last year? Welcome. You're also part of my community. You can get your merit badge and your secret handshake on your way out the door. This goes back to Buck v. Bell 90 years ago when Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes said that 3 generations of imbeciles were more than enough. And this was reiterated just a few years ago in the carceral system in California, where they involuntarily sterilized tens of thousands of black women against their will and against their even knowing. This is the kind of justice that Judge Kavanaugh believes in. I am a pro-choice woman, but forcing people with disabilities to have abortions against their will is not what we talk about when we talk about choice. Not at all. But apparently Judge Kavanaugh doesn't think that we can make decisions for ourselves. So what I'm leaving you with, I'm here because 1 in 4 of us in this audience right now has a disability. So if you have a migraine, if you watch captioning instead of getting a hearing aid because it's way easier and way more affordable, as we all know, because hearing aids are not covered by most health insurance plans. If you the 7 million women with eating disorders in this country are people with disabilities. The 800,000 of us with chronic fatigue. The 950,000 women with postpartum depression, and the 50 million women in this country that are survivors of cancer, and the 50 million women in this country that have seen a therapist in the last year. I'm here for Joan Hare, back from 1989, as much as I am for Kaya Coakley here in 2018. And I look forward to all of you joining us, because let us remind you, the disability community saved your health care last year. And I hope all of you that had your hands up know that I'm recruiting you for the next sit-in. So we'll see you soon. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Please thank our incredible 2 speakers. All right. I want to invite up next to the stage the Executive Director of End Rape on Campus, Jess Davidson. Please give a round of applause. How's everybody doing? Who's fired up? All right, let's try that again. Who's fired up? All right, that's what I'm talking about. My name is Jess Davidson, and I stand before you as a survivor of campus sexual assault. I am a therapy-going woman with a disability, and right now I am out here scared about what is happening in there. I'm here representing tens of millions of survivors of sexual assault, particularly as part of my work at End Rape on Campus, people who experience sexual violence while trying to achieve education. I'm here because sexual assault survivors depend on health care. I'm here because birth control is health care. I'm here because abortion is health care. And I'm here because as a survivor, the only place that I've ever been able to talk about my status as a survivor as part of my health care with my provider and be treated with trauma-informed care rather than discomfort is Planned Parenthood. Thank you, Planned Parenthood. You know, today, when I heard Judge Kavanaugh call birth control abortion-inducing medication, it struck me with a fear that I have not known for a very long time. And it took me back to a moment
when I really needed health care. I needed survivor health care. I'm losing my papers because I needed birth control after I was raped in college. Like tens of millions of survivors who depend on contraceptives and on emergency contraceptives, the only reason I stand before you here today as a college graduate and as an executive director of a national nonprofit at 24 years old is because I had access to an emergency contraceptive after I was sexually assaulted that prevented me from becoming pregnant by my rapist. Now, some people might say, Jess, you're a survivor. You'll probably be protected under whatever happens because they'll allow abortion in cases of sexual violence and incest. And to claims of using survivors of sexual assault as means to achieve a radical agenda that we do not want, support, believe in, or benefit from, I say no. Survivor justice is reproductive justice. I say no to an agenda that uses survivors by the same men who stand on the floor of the Senate and say, I believe the women. I'm talking to you, Mitch McConnell. I say no to claims that anything less than complete and full autonomy over all bodies, survivor bodies, and our allies. Any agenda that claims to do anything other than that does not benefit survivors. It is not for us. I say no to an agenda that would make healing, healthcare, and life any harder than it is for survivors, for queer people, for disabled people, for immigrants, for workers, for people of color, for all of us. And if Brett Kavanaugh becomes a justice on the Supreme Court, life, healing, and healthcare will be harder for all communities that aren't wealthy white men. I say no. I say no to this sham hearing in which we don't truly know the extent of Brett Kavanaugh's sexism and his racism. I say no to Brett Kavanaugh. Survivors say no. We say no. We say no. We say no. We say no. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All right, next up to the stage, I am proud to introduce Ellery Grimm from 0 Hour. Please give it up.
Thank you. Hi, thank you for having me here on the stolen land of the Piscataway people. My name is Frances Ellery Grimm. I'm a junior at Washington Latin Public Charter School here in Washington, D.C., and I am the press director for 0 Hour. To work year-round, to live outside, and to commute outside is to be an environmental activist. America's manual laborers, homeless people, students, and teachers are fighters. Life outdoors has been unavoidable and in many cases dangerous for them due to pollution, climate disasters, police brutality, and sexual violence. They give their time and their health to cultivate thoughtful minds, a considerate and involved community, and a beautiful city. I can say, as a privileged middle-class white person, that I am very grateful for the service of the many different workers in our country. I can also say, unfortunately, that there are some people that won't match their self-proclaimed gratitude and support with action. Every person in the buildings around us think of their constituents only after their reputation. They refuse to have those tough conversations. They refuse to look us in the eye and shake our hand. They are too busy, too scared, too self-absorbed to put our well-being before themselves. Considering you are all here, I know that this is a safe place, that I can say something that's been on my mind. My observation of these rallies is that we end up preaching to the choir. We all want to end racial bigotry. We all want a person with a uterus to have a right to their body. We all want our trans siblings to thrive. We agree. So instead, let's start talking to the people who say they agree with us and make them take action. Thank you. I'm going to ask everyone, if you can, to please turn and face the Supreme Court. Repeat after me. Mother Earth is suffering. Her children are dying. We demand a livable future. Thank you. Now, what will you do after this rally? What will you do besides sacrificing this one evening? Will you have those tough conversations? Will you be free, brave, and selfless for the people in your life that don't expect to receive what you've taken for granted? This is 0 Hour, and we are the ones we've been waiting for. Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right. Now I'd love to invite to the stage Reverend Rita Nakashima Brock, who is a member of our Clergy Advocacy Board at Planned Parenthood. Please give it up.
So I want to tell you that when I entered college in 1968, an adult woman could not get the birth control pill unless she could prove to a doctor that she was married. Now, I would like you to explain to me the patriarchal logic that denies birth control to adult women who are the most likely not to want to get pregnant. Really. That is the world that Kavanaugh on the court would want to take us back to. Right. Because he thinks contraception is abortion. I knew in 7th grade how babies are made. Somebody needs to give him a lesson. And now we know that the majority of Americans, including the majority of religious Americans, trust women and advocate and want us to control our own reproductive health and lives. And this week, 32 very different and diverse religious organizations signed a letter that went to every senator on the Judiciary Committee opposing the appointment of Judge Kavanaugh. And I just want to read you a couple of sentences from the letter because it says a lot about the majority of religious people who support a woman's right to choose. It says, our varied religious traditions support the moral authority of women to make their own decisions about abortion, and we all share a dedication to helping those who are vulnerable. A vast majority of people of faith believe that all women, regardless of income, are moral agents. We believe this entitles each person to follow her own inner compass when making decisions about her reproductive health, free from undue constraint or impediment. Although we come from different traditions, we are united in our alarm that, should the Supreme Court turn back the clock on a woman's right to choose the reproductive health care that best suits her particular needs, including abortion, the consequences for society will be devastating, especially for women of color, LGBTQ women, and low-income women. Judge Kavanaugh's views on the civil right to choose abortion and the sacred right to bodily autonomy give us great pause over his confirmation to the highest court in our land. So, how many of you here have a religious tradition? And how many of you are sort of spiritual but not religious? And how many of you are not religious at all? And how many of you are sort of secularist or humanist or some other intellectual tradition? Spiritual atheist. There are such wonderful diversities in moral people. We are all moral people, and we have a right to our own, to health care, to a living wage, to a safe planet, to all the things that everybody has talked about today and everything that you all represent. So I just want to bless you, whatever your moral tradition. I want to say this work is sacred. This work is important to saving lives and giving dignity to every person on the planet. So bless you all. It's holy, sacred work. Amen.
Amen indeed. All right, y'all, I am very aware that it's just, I'm in between you and air conditioning. But please just bear with me for one more moment. I come to this space super thankful and happy and blessed. And I think seeing all of the different posters here, hearing all of the different speakers, I'm reminded that we can't do this work in our silos. We have to do this work together, and more importantly, we have to take care of one another, because this is a long fight, y'all. We're in it for the long run, and we have to make sure that we're all healthy and happy to be able to do this work continuously. So I want to end us with one of my favorite chants, one of the first chants I was ever taught at Planned Parenthood, and I borrow it from Assata Shakur. It's a call and response. So I am going to call, and you're going to respond. You're going to say the same thing that I'm saying. It is our duty to fight.
It is our duty to fight.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love one another and protect one another.
We must love one another and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
All right, I need everyone out there and over there and over there to hear us, so we're going to do it louder, okay? Sound good? It is our duty to fight.
It is our duty to fight.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love one another and protect one another.
We must love one another and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
It is our duty to fight.
It is our duty to fight.
It is our duty to win.
It is our duty to win.
We must love one another and protect one another.
We must love one another and protect one another.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
We have nothing to lose but our chains.
Thank you all so much for being here with us. Speaking of Mother Earth, we would all kindly appreciate, as you leave the space, you take what you brought with you. So please take any signs, any water bottles, any trash with you, so we can leave this park as we came. Thank you so much, and safe travels to everyone traveling back home.
Margie.